Nintendo's pair of plumbers have been part of my life as long as I've been living. While I've been partial to Luigi, I've journeyed across Mario's paper adventures, 2D classics in the form of Super Mario All-Stars and Super Mario World, or partying it up back in the Nintendo 64 days. Be it a main game, a sports-themed spin-off, or even the Mario Party adventures, I've always felt quite a connection to the journeys and world of the Mushroom Kingdom. In fact, you'd have to get really obscure to find any of these games that I haven't played start to finish. I even played Mario Party Advance. With the recent hype around his 35th birthday and impending demise on the 31st, I figured it might be time to take a look back on what is, without doubt, my favorite 3D Mario game. Super Mario Galaxy has always been a bit of a divisive title among fans of Mario's 3D outings, and for reasons that I always found to be so bizarre. Sure, it's linear in a sense that it's not quite as much of a sandbox as, say, Mario 64, but not really in the same way that the 3D land/world games were. Galaxy always had this sort of thematic consistency. It built on what Mario Sunshine tried to do, creating some sense of uniformity from the worlds you traveled in, but it did it in a creative enough way where there was also a fair degree of variance from one level to the next. It always felt like entering different rooms of a giant house, which I think is part of what the Comet Observatory is themed after. It has echoes of Peach's Castle from Mario 64, a masterfully crafted hub world. And in my eyes, the Comet Observatory feels like a virtual home in very much the same way. Most games convey their themes through narrative and aesthetic. While Mario seldom has much story to tell at all, this game is definitely an exception to that rule. The premise is still simple, of course. Bowser kidnaps Peach, but even the execution of that story beat is so grandiose compared to previous titles in the series. A flood of airships destroying the Star Festival and freezing the Mushroom Kingdom denizens in a block of ice, a huge orchestral rendition of Bowser's classic Doom Ship theme from back in the day, and a confrontation that's carried out with some beautiful pre-rendered cutscenes that really put the Wii's hardware to its best possible use. I mean, even with the upscaling they did for 3D All-Stars, this game looks like it could have come out today, and honestly, it would measure up pretty well. Now, by the time you've paid your first visit to the hub world, the Comet Observatory, you've already experienced some of the mind-bending gravity stunts that the game is centered around, so you have a nice feel of what's to come. Theming is already set, and that theme carries throughout the entire game. Grand, big, large, whatever verbiage you prefer, there's no doubt that this is the single most ambitious Mario game to date, even considering the behemoths such as Super Mario Bros. 3 and Odyssey. Be it Nintendo's first dive into a fully orchestral soundtrack for the planet-hopping plumber, their use of a cohesive narrative, or even just the overall scale of the world. This game was so new and inviting to series veterans, while still being an exciting and mystifying journey for the newcomers as well. Galaxy 2 is often described as the best of the two, and while I do find that game to be excellent in its own right, with its delivery on Yoshi and I would say some equally high-quality level design, as far as the overall aesthetic and atmosphere, it doesn't quite check the same boxes for me that the first game did. Super Mario Galaxy has an inventive approach to platforming, introducing this distorted gravity system that players can master, circling around different planets and exploring their undersides. One reason this resonated so strongly with me is because it feels like a natural culmination and evolution of developing a 3D platformer, utilizing every axis to its full potential and leveraging perspective as a core mechanic, something that we actually see carry through in Super Mario 3D Land on the 3DS. One reason that Super Mario 3D World is not as strong of an entry for me is because the diversity of level design never really felt quite as cohesive as it did in Galaxy. I know theming isn't always as important in a platformer as it would be in a more story-driven game like an RPG or an action-adventure, but for me, Mario 3D World always felt like I was experiencing really cool, disconnected levels, like I was visiting different rides at a theme park. They were fun, sure, but there was no sort of thread keeping everything connected, and because the experience is linear and a bit on the longer side, that started to wear a little bit thin for me. Super Mario Galaxy, on the other hand, is much more in line with what I personally value in a game, because they go to great lengths to keep the overall sense of continuity in everything that you do. And it's not necessarily by creating the same detailed progression of level design from Mario games of old either. It was mostly by sprinkling little narrative details throughout the game. The presence of the Toad Brigade, the use of Rosalina's storybook. These are the game's strongest points for me. You're constantly being reminded not only that you're not in this alone and that you've got a whole team working toward a common goal, but that there is a narrative thread that makes Toy Time Galaxy and Space Junk still feel like they're part of the same journey with the same goals. Then, of course, the level design itself, while linear, is exceptional. A visit to a given galaxy will give you across so many different planets, various puzzles, and all sorts of platforming challenges that are all aesthetically in line with the galaxy's theme. And a lot of them also offer branching paths depending on which mission you choose. Freeze Flame Galaxy is one of my favorites because it incorporates a lot of the same level design principles that we've seen executed in more recent Mario games. Starting to introduce you to an idea over various missions, and then evolving that idea to a point where you're combining various obstacles, power-ups, and frames of design thought all together. I would say a good example of this would come from its third mission. Initially, when you first arrive to Freeze Flame Galaxy, you're learning to skate across its icy plains, scaling a mountain, for instance, to defeat a boss. The second mission brings you across a lava world where you face a slightly more treacherous traps and challenges. And then the third mission incorporates facets of both of these, weaving them together to create a convergence of the challenges, and allowing you to employ every technique you should have learned, navigating the scary, treacherous lava puzzles while incorporating the skating that you learned in the first mission for speed. Ultimately, these are two very different challenges in dexterity, but they're combined in order to remind you of everything you've learned in your brief stint in that location. And other levels might change in different ways too. Honey Hive Galaxy in its third mission is under attack by an invading bug species, and so when you join in, everything feels more hurried, the tempo of the music has increased, and now you're tasked with saving them from their invaders. It feels like almost an evolution of the episodic structure of missions back in Mario Sunshine, but without that sort of mandatory requirement that you beat all of them. It allows your experience to be much more catered to your personal preferences as far as aesthetic and quality of platforming challenges. The game's sense of atmosphere as well, I think, is unlike anything else I've seen in Mario prior to or since then, barring perhaps some of his RPG adventures. The water levels all really jive with this tropical theme, the more open grassland areas have this sort of epic, grandiose undertone, and the Bowser levels have this beautiful orchestral arrangement of the original Bowser Road music from Mario 64. But perhaps my favorite part of Mario Galaxy is the way that it leverages its quieter moments. I don't remember Mario Galaxy for its explosive boss battles or bombastic combat sequences. I remember it because of levels like the Space Junk Galaxy, or moments listening to Rosalina as she reads her storybook, or some of the one-off levels you unlock by feeding hungry Lumas. The game's ability to slow down and really let the moment sink in is, in my opinion, its strongest quality. I always got the sense that Yoshiaki Koizumi, one of the game's lead designers, really wanted this experience to be personal for players. There's this beautiful dance almost, a combination of Shigeru Miyamoto's guiding hand in the building out of the world and core mechanics, and the familiar sounds of Koji Kondo to remind players that you're still experiencing that classic Mario style. And yet newer players in their roles in the series, such as Koizumi and Mahito Yokota, one of the game's lead composers, breathe new life into the series in a way that, simply put, we haven't seen before. So to conclude, Super Mario Galaxy's ambition percolates throughout every facet of its design, from its uniquely structured levels to its grand orchestral soundtrack to its beautiful narrative undertones and layered themes of adventure, grandeur, and love in many forms, romantic, familial, and otherwise. This is truly a game ahead of its time, and in my eyes, it's one of the greatest journeys Nintendo's ever taken us on. Thank you all for watching this somewhat shorter video, just a quick retrospective on a game that means the world to me. I know this is a little bit late in the game, but if you were on the fence about Mario 3D World, I truly do believe that this game is enough to justify it. I realize there are a lot of problems with the way that they released it, but this is actually an opportunity to play Super Mario Galaxy in what I consider to be its best form. And I would argue that that's an experience well worth $60. That said, I hope you enjoyed, and please keep an eye out for more to come. I know I took a bit of a hiatus after the Edelgard video, just needed some time to work on getting my script backlog up. And I'm still powering through the Yakuza games because I really want to do a video on those soon. So, thank you again for watching, and come back soon for more from the game room.